the hidden side of the real plan, the architecture of offshore Brazil. When we look at the Banco Master scandal, a 52 billion reais shortfall, 700 million reais transferred to the Cayman Islands on the eve of Daniel Vorcaro's arrest. The first reaction is to treat the case as an isolated deviation. A gigantic fraud, yes, but an anomaly in the system. To truly understand the story, we need to take a step back. The master case is not a flaw in the Brazilian financial system. It is the system working exactly as it was designed to work starting in 1994. The illusion of monetary correction and the 1994 coup. Between 1964 and 1994, Brazil lived through the illusion of currency changes. Cruzeiro, Cruzado, Cruzado Novo, Cruzeiro Real. In practice, they were just cutting zeros and changing names. Inflation continued, but it was masked by an ingenious mechanism: monetary correction. It worked as an accounting adjustment that allowed the government and banks to roll over debt indefinitely. The real plan, implemented under Fernando Henrique Cardoso, is celebrated as the end of hyperinflation. And indeed it was. But what official history omits is that the real plan was also ground zero for a new financial architecture: the creation of offshore Brazil. The real plan and its consequences can be seen as an economic hitman event. Currency stabilization was the perfect pretext to open the capital account and institutionalize wealth flight. Inverse management, the macroeconomic triad as a suction pump. Starting in 1999, Brazil adopted the macroeconomic triad: inflation targeting, floating exchange rates, and primary surplus. On paper, perfect economic theory. In practice, a wealth transfer machine. The way the central bank operates this triad generates what we can call inverse management. Instead of managing the currency to protect the purchasing power of the citizen, exchange rate and interest rate management is done to protect and remunerate speculative capital. The mechanism works like this. The central bank keeps real interest rates among the highest in the world, often above 8 or 9%. This attracts speculative dollars, which enter the country, convert to reais, yield absurd interest without producing a single nail, and then return abroad. When there is any instability, the exchange rate slips, the real devalues, and the central bank fights the resulting inflation with more high interest rates. The result is the double lever: a cheap real and a cheap stock market. Few dollars buy many reais, and those many reais buy Brazil for peanuts.
Offshore Brazil is bigger than the central bank. The consequence of this architecture is visible in the numbers. Brazilian capital parked in tax havens like Cayman, Bahamas, and Jersey is estimated to be 4 to 5 times the value of the international reserves of the Central Bank of Brazil itself. We are not talking about mismanagement. We are talking about legalized accounting fraud. The liabilities, debts, precarious infrastructure, high interest rates stay in Brazil. The assets, profits, dividends, real wealth go to offshore Brazil. Banco Master, the perfect child of the system. This is where Banco Master comes in. Daniel Vorcaro didn't invent the wheel. He just drove the sports car that Fernando Henrique Cardoso built and that all subsequent governments kept fueled. Master took precatorios, state debts generated by the system's own inefficiency, transformed them into certificates of deposit with sky-high profitability, backed by the central bank's high interest rates, and sold them to the market through complicit brokerages. When the pyramid threatened to collapse, what did Vorcaro do? The same thing the financial elite has done since 1994, transferred 700 million reais to an offshore in the Cayman Islands. Capital flight is not a bump in the road, it is the ultimate goal of the model. Banco Master is just the latest and loudest symptom of a chronic disease. The solution: neutral exchange rate and the balance weight. The only way to disarm this suction pump is to change the way the economic triad is operated. The solution involves adopting a neutral exchange rate or exchange rate band, acting as the balance weight between domestic capital and offshore capital. If the central bank actively acts to reduce exchange rate volatility, selling reserves when the real is weak and buying when it is strong, imported inflation drops. Without imported inflation, real interest rates can and should be reduced to a civilized limit of, at most, 2% per year. With interest rates at 2% and a stable exchange rate, speculative capital leaves, but productive capital, the kind that builds factories and creates jobs, stays. It's the difference between capital that sucks and capital that builds. The Banco Master case shouldn't be seen just as a police matter. It is the definitive warning that the central bank needs to return to acting as the fiduciary manager of the Brazilian people's wealth and not as the guarantor of profits for offshore Brazil.